You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Welcome back to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at www.marcguzman.com. You can also find a list of all my podcast episodes along with a list of every guest that has been on my show. We have a bunch of new episodes lined up over the next few weeks, starting with our guest today, Joel Tolbert. Joel is the COO of Sun Mountain LLC. They cover Northern California when it comes to connecting development projects to utilities such as PG&E. On this episode, we discuss the various housing developments in the Bay Area, along with the biggest transit projects that will impact the Bay Area and the California Central Valley. Thanks for being here.
I feel less alive today than I normally do, but yes.
Less alive?
I feel less alive a little bit, yeah. That's why I'm...
Well, you know what? This is the first Facebook Live episode we're going to do.
That's great.
Ever. Yeah.
So that's why it said everything's going to go wrong.
I do a lot of Facebook Living, but I always do it organic to the phone.
Oh, yeah.
So I've never done it with any plugins.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually curious how it's going to work.
You can even record like a pre-recorded video and upload it as a Facebook Live video. You can do that too.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Now, of course, I've seen like some pretty big people with a wide range of audience where their fans will call them out on a pre-recorded video.
Yeah.
And they don't like it. So it's very interesting.
My people...
All right, we're live.
Okay, we're live now.
Yay.
Back live. So Joel, thank
man.
you for coming on to the podcast. This is the very first episode of the Marc Guzman Experience on Facebook Live. So pretty excited for this.
Awesome. Cheers.
Yeah. So are you a baseball fan?
Am I a baseball fan? I'm a Dodgers fan, so I guess
All right,
no.
Ooh,
we're gonna do
yeah.
this podcast
I was
right now.
waiting for Sam to do, because I think he's made 3 posts in the last couple days about that, and I was like, I was waiting to drop that bomb on him.
I grew up as a Giants fan too.
I'm from Merced originally. My whole family's, really Bay Area focused. That made made family events really boring. I'm a very cantankerous person, so I went with the Dodgers instead, so that me and my dad had something to argue about.
So he was a Giants fan?
Yeah. I mean, we went to a lot of A's games as kids just because it's easier, but...
So do you follow baseball at all, or you're just a fan of the team?
No, I'm mainly I like the colors.
The colors?
Yeah. Who
Let's
likes the A's colors? I mean, seriously. Green and gold? Come on.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Giants colors?
Giants colors are badass, though.
During Halloween?
No, all year long.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to get the all black jackets with little orange, what's the word? Logo on it.
Yeah. No, I don't dig it, but okay.
Beers.
Beers? Yes.
What's on your radar as far as beers?
Okay, so I had a really positive experience with a company out of Berkeley, and I'm spacing on the name. My buddy's one of the brewers there that does sours, and I've never been a sours fan. I really never liked them, any I've ever had. But I went there and I had it like really tapped right out of the barrel. He showed me the entire process. He explained to me why I may have had bad sours in the past. And you know what? They're really good. I went there that night, then I went there the next night. The chef got a Michelin star under her belt, so it's hard to find that in the Bay Area for reasonable prices. I went there and had beer with him, and he showed me around, gave me the whole it's like a winery. Like sours are like wine. He gave me the whole tour, talking about the process. It was really cool. And then I took my wife back the next night so she could get a little bit of that Michelin star action.
Where's it at in Berkeley?
It's in Berkeley. Oh man, it's kind of an industrial area in Berkeley. I'm gonna remember as soon as I'm
Like off Gilman, 6th Street, right around there?
I don't know Berkeley that well.
Okay.
I really don't.
By the freeway? Is it close to the freeway, or you have to kind of go in deeper into Berkeley, like toward the university?
Every time I've driven there like through Oakland and never through the freeway. So it's always been back roads.
Okay.
Sides. But it's in an industrial. I don't even remember which side of the freeway it's on. I believe it's on the east side of the freeway, though. I think that's right. I'm good.
Yeah, sour beers are interesting. I had my very first one on a golf trip with my father down in Morro Bay, and I don't remember the name of the brewing company, but it was very interesting. It's completely different. I mean, I think it's one of those where either you love it or you hate it.
I would firmly agree with that. And I hated it for a long time. And I had these guys, and it's really good. I'm trying to reach for my Google Foods to figure it out, because I really did. I thought it was great beer. The food was killer. God, I'll remember it in a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe during halftime I'll remember it.
Have you tried any of the local brewing companies in Richmond? There's Armistice.
No.
East Brother Beer Company.
I was at Heretic this weekend in Fairfield.
In Fairfield?
Yeah.
That's where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up over there by Paradise Valley.
Oh, no judgment. No. Paradise Valley. Yeah, there's a... Anyway, I'm not going to talk about Paradise Valley.
Yeah.
We'll talk after.
I wasn't a fan of it. So you can talk all the trash you want.
Nope. No, there's other reasons.
So how long have you lived in the Bay Area now?
It's a good question. So I've lived in the Bay Area off and on since 2002. I'm a 17-year veteran of the Army. I've been in and out. I've got 3 or 4 honorable discharges. I go in for a couple years. I do my tour. I get bored and want to do something else, and I leave and go back in a few years later to do something else. So during one of those inner periods, I came to the Bay, 2002, went to SF State, graduated at SF State, and then left again in 2004. And then I didn't get a chance to come back to the Bay till 2012. I was here for about 6 months when I got out of the military second time, and then came back recently in 2015 when I graduated with my master's in business.
I would say you love the Bay Area at this point.
Do I love the Bay Area? I think the Bay Area, you can't love the Bay Area. It's too big, right? It's too varied. I love parts of the Bay Area.
Okay.
I love certain cultures in the Bay Area. But it's too big to love all of the Bay Area. I mean, unless you're like, I love the big hodgepodge of mess that it is.
Yeah.
Which people do.
So let's talk about your company's Sun Mountain LLC, right?
Right.
Now, this is going to be a very interesting episode, and I think for the people that love to talk about real estate, love to know about what's going on, and especially if you're a real estate agent, it's going to be a really great educational episode for kind of what's going on.
Right.
So let's get into what you do at Sun Mountain and what the company does.
Sure. So I'm the chief operating officer of Sun Mountain. The principal and owner is Mike Elmore. Both of us are veterans of the military. He's Air Force. I'm 17 years in the Army. Sun Mountain itself is a professional services firm with a focus on energy and infrastructure. Our primary client is PG&E. We do a lot of natural gas work at PG&E. I myself was a project manager at PG&E for several years. Did some really large projects with them. And now we're kind of growing out into other places. Other things we're trying to get work on are like the high-speed rail going through Central California, connecting Central California to the Bay in a more economical, efficient manner. Economical for the riders. Let me caveat that. Now there's a lot of major growth. The United States in general is going through kind of a renaissance when it comes to infrastructure. There's California alone, I can name $40 billion of work going on in California alone.
So California is the renaissance?
Well, the whole nation's going through an infrastructure renaissance and an infrastructure investment renaissance, I really should say. Whatever your feelings about it, the president's opening comment in his acceptance speech directly addressed infrastructure. And then that's been followed through with in a lot of ways. Pipelines across the country are going and everywhere. Welders are turning down work left and right because there's so much work. Inspection crews, construction crews can travel wherever they want in the country right now and command amazing prices for them.
And not just welders, but plumbers and all different types of professionals are having to be shipped into California to get jobs done, right?
We have had a lot of difficulties getting competitive pricing in California for trades. The trades right now is, if any of you guys are young, 18, 19, mid-20s, or looking to kind of rebrand yourself, looking at a trade instead of going to college is a wonderful idea.
I read a really good article that the United States has been pushing so much on college for like the last 50, 60 years that now we have a huge deficit.
We have a skills deficit, absolutely.
Exactly, yeah.
And we're having to import a lot of skills trade. I actually just reposted that on my Facebook page. It was NPR.
Okay.
I think wrote it up. And no, it's absolutely right. There are just not enough people who are interested in trades. We've spent, really Vietnam, because of the relationship with the Vietnam War and college. And we've kind of had since that period on that there's been a single dialogue in this country that like going to college is the only way to take care of yourself, to take care of your family. And I'll tell you, it's absolutely.
And it's not. I know there's plumbers making $100 to $150 an hour.
Yep.
And they're employed 8 hours a day.
Yep.
Simple and easy.
Yep. And I interviewed a guy. My business is booming because of all this infrastructure work. I interviewed a guy the other day that I tried to get in, and he was a welding inspector, and he had good experience. And he's like, "Look, I make $200,000 a year, man." He goes, "What you're offering me is not enough to bring me to California. I can continue hanging out in Oregon without state taxes, and I got to say that's good money."
Yeah.
So
yeah, when you're saving on the 10% California state tax.
Right. So no, Sun Mountain, that's what we do, professional services. I staff tradespeople with trade skills into full-time employed positions. We do full-time employment rather than contract-based employment for the majority of our work. It helps us out in a lot of ways. It lets us see the same people all the time. I know my people. We're at about 40 employees right now, which makes us pretty decent. But I know them. I don't have to cycle people on and off, which it always sucks. You want to bring people in and have them be part of your family. And it really sucks to say, hey, this is the end of this contract. It's been great working with you. We try to get you something next year. Because the construction cycle is, really weather dependent. But
So is the biggest challenge right now that you're facing in your position finding tradespeople?
Yes.
For different projects?
100%. Yeah. I'm constantly in. We advertise a lot in Indeed, a lot through our personal networks. I think we've hired all of our friends, and all of our friends' wives. I think we've hired everybody that we can conceivably hire.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, one of the real estate agents here is my employee. My wife was my employee twice. Yeah, we do. That's the hardest thing is getting qualified people. And I've got a couple positions that are open, and it's a lot of on-the-job training. You only need a couple years of construction-related experience. But what our clients are really looking for, people who are hungry. That's the term they use. People who go out. They want to get the job done. They want to show up on time. They want to do a good job. They want to be friends with the people that they work with. They don't mind driving 150 miles, which you get paid for, to go do some work, finish up that work for the day, do your paperwork, turn around, drive home. That's what they want.
So let's talk about some of the projects. Does your company have anything to do with the high-speed rail project?
So I've been working on supplying professional services for the high-speed rail for the last about year. The high-speed rail is I'm from Merced, like I said. The high-speed rail is, I think, probably the most positively economic impact to that region that's ever been developed. In 2010, Forbes magazine came out with essentially the top 10 worst cities in America. Of those top 10 worst cities in America, 7 of them were in the Central Valley. Number 1 is Stockton. Number 3 was someplace in Florida that I don't know. No, that was number 2. Number 3 was Merced, where I'm from. And then it just went steadily ticked down, all the way down until it ended with number 10 in Bakersfield. That just shows the economic disparity that exists in the Central Valley compared to what we have out here in the Bay Area with the prices we can command on labor. Even though it's expensive to live, it's compensated with that way. But when that happened in 2010, we all remember the crash happened, and a lot of those people out there had bought homes right before. So they weren't willing to have to crash. No one was willing to drive 2.5 hours one way to work anymore. So they just left their houses in place and drove and moved back towards the Bay Area, leaving massive amounts of just
empty housing out there.
Empty houses. Yeah, there are some people. UC Merced, there was a lot of them built out there near the new UC, and a lot of McMansions. Kids were renting McMansions for $500 a month. They had hot tubs and 5 bedrooms, and let all their buddies crash and partied and wreck those houses. But they were cheap because they were just trying to cover the property taxes at the time.
Wow.
So because the owners were planning on defaulting anyway. It just those kind of places are so economically depressed, and the power of those areas is really held by the landowners. When I say landowners, I mean the ranchers. It's always been that way. The ranchers are incentivized to keep their labor prices down. So they want, they need to keep the cost of living down associatively. That means they make choices based on keeping the area kind of entry level. Now, Central California is the breadbasket of this country. We do like 90% of all the fruits and vegetables, all the almonds. Like, if you eat something, it's not just, you're not eating it because it's local. You're eating it because it came from California. I think oranges. Go get oranges from someplace else, but we still grow them.
Yeah, I think Florida has the oranges.
I think they beat us, but it's not much. Cattle. You like beef? It's here. It's not Wyoming. It's not Montana.
So how would the high-speed rail help out that region?
Okay, so here's how high-speed rail is going to help that region, right? And this is not a plug for high-speed rail. I'm just a believer in it. High-speed rail will reopen those avenues for people who are high-income generators to then move out of the, I would say, the bloated housing market we have here in the Bay Area, and move out to those areas where it's cheaper. You can buy a perfectly reasonable house, 2,000 square foot on, half an acre in Merced for $350,000. It's the same price you get in Texas. You can make that ride on the high-speed rail in 45 minutes. So the currently what you see with the high-speed rail is they're doing the test runs. They've got about 154 miles that run from Fresno and go down to Bakersfield. There's one dog leg to the right to test the turning capabilities. No train currently exists that conforms to United States Transportation Authority standards when it comes to trains. Everything in the high-speed rail industry is working on a different track diameter, different track specs, and that's in other companies or other countries. The companies they brought in are all experts in those, though. They brought in Dragados, they brought in Flatiron. There's other ones I can't remember right now. But those are the two. It's because I just talked with Dragados and Flatiron on Thursday. Those are the folks who come in and they have experience in other places. So they're bringing that track laying experience in. That's going to be the test run. They're going to use that to develop the train. The carrier, which is the train, the carrier will then be developed pretty much in the United States on site, and then run multiple runs to make sure nothing bad happens. They want to keep accidents like what happened up north in Tacoma recently, where a train flipped and hurt a bunch of people. So they want to prevent that from happening. The dog leg is supposed to resolve that. Once that's done, and that's being pushed right now, that will essentially be connected with downtown Fresno. Downtown Fresno will then move up to Manteca and then connect with San Jose. That's the first real run. There's a Y at Manteca called the Manteca Y. The Manteca Y will split and go up to 16th Street in Merced. Right? It's like where I joined the Army at that recruiting station. It's not a nice area. It can use some economic improvement. So how this is all going to help? You're going to bring in all these folks in the San Jose who are used to commanding six-figure incomes, bringing them out and where they can pay. Nobody knows how much high-speed rail is going to cost right now, but let's say it's ferry cost, so like $13. Let's say it costs $15. They drive that in, it costs $45. Takes them 45 minutes to get into work. For a lot of these folks, that's less time than it takes currently. And it'll all be Wi-Fi, and so they can do everything. You're not stuck in traffic. You can do all your work. You can count that towards hours, which is what I would do. That's a huge economic benefit for those kind of people, right? And I think what you'll see is once it's completed, once that initial stretch is completed, you'll see a general drain out of the South Bay area of those type of folks who go rush to go purchase units in Merced, in Fresno, which have to say they're pre-Clinton Brooklyn.
Okay.
Okay, that is gonna bring in all of that money. Those people with that money are going to demand additional services that aren't currently provided organically. Like Merced doesn't have a club. It doesn't have, there's a lot of things that it's lacking. In particular, Fresno.
But all that will develop with the new influx of people coming in,
Exactly.
buying, investing back into Merced, Fresno, and those areas, right?
Right, and then it's going to continue going up north, and it's locked in south. So now you have Bakersfield locked into Fresno, locked into San Jose. San Jose is going to continue going forward, and it's going to terminate in San Francisco. And that's the idea of what the initial run is going to work.
So now might be the time to buy some real estate there if you're looking to invest.
If you are looking to invest, I would say real estate, multi-units, especially multi-units down near 16th Street, multi-units in Fresno where the new terminal is being put in. Those would not be bad ideas, because you can still get like multi-units for ridiculously low prices there.
Yeah.
And then just keep your eye on rent control policies. And
Yeah. Now, when would this high-speed rail be finished?
Well, that's a good point. So, or good question. So they're still working on it. The initial track and test period, that's what's really going to be indicative of what happens. So the initial test track period over the next 2-3 years should be finalized. And then from then on, so probably in about 10 years, we might get San Jose hooked up to Fresno. And
Oh, so we're still years away then.
Yeah.
Because when did they pass the whole initiative to?
Oh, man.
I mean, I want to say
It was
that was
before
10
I came
years.
back. It was like
2008 or 9 or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was before I came back. Yeah.
So now we're talking about 20 years from the original date when they passed it.
Right. Well, if you look at another major infrastructure project in California, the Cal Water Fix project, you ever heard of it?
No.
Of course not. Cal Water Fix has been around in one version or another since 1955-ish. It suffers from an issue that it's been around so long that no one believes it's going to happen. That's breaking ground in the next 12 months. So the Cal Water Fix project, for those of you guys who are looking, a lot of positive and negative press about it, but it's a very interesting idea. It's essentially a massive water storage system for the state of California that runs through the Delta. It's 250-plus mile long bores tunnel. Each of those bores will be 40 feet in diameter.
Wow.
All right, and they're 150 feet below the surface. So, and then they're going to hook up to, there are going to be 3 essentially transmittal stations.
And these are going to be storage containers,
They're
basically.
essentially storage containers. What they do is they suck water in from up north, up in Shasta. In the American River, they eat that water up until they fill up. I think it's like 3,000. I think the flow is like 3,000 CFI. And once that fills up, right, it's going to continue to move through the pipe, so it'll always be good water, right? And then that'll hook up to the current water system that feeds all of the central California. There's some environmental challenges there. There's obviously a lot of environmental challenges there because it goes through the Delta, right? People are worried about this in a lot of different ways, but that's a $16 billion project.
And when did this originally pass?
Its first planning cycle was like 1955.
Wow.
And it's taken that long to go through multiple iterations, developments. In kind of the same, kind of a similar period of time, there's, if you're interested or you're just feeling, if you want to feel depressed about something, you can go on and you can Google, Google something like, dropping water table California. There's a couple of documentaries on Netflix actually about the water table in California. There's like this picture of a guy and he's standing next to a post and it's like the mid 50s, 40s, 20s, whatever. He's standing next to this post and the post is like right here on him or something, right? They fast forward, the guy's 50 years later, he's 20 feet below where that post was later on. And the reason for that is because everyone has pumped the aquifer out of Central California. The water exists in a flowing river underneath everywhere, most everywhere. But in Central California, there's an underground river too that flows everywhere. And as We've gone through our numerous droughts. Farmers have dug deeper and deeper wells to tap into that. And wells are an arms race. Essentially, the person who digs the deepest, is the one that gets all the water. So they've sucked all the water out of that river, and it's caused collapses, and it's caused a general sinking of the Central Valley. This is designed to help mitigate that issue.
Okay.
Along with a number of other issues, and giving us some water resources for which to rely and plan on.
In case of droughts.
Other drought issues are the fact that in the 70s there's a massive storm that came through and created a lot of it almost broke numerous dams, like we saw 2 years ago with Folsom Dam.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that people complain that the dams are only allowed to be filled up to a 70% level, so there's really it looks like this, right? A lake looks like this, but you can only fill it up to 70%. So you're looking at right here.
Okay.
This top portion is as big as this bottom portion, is in a lot of intents and purposes, right? But if you're only filling up to 70%, you're losing all that access to water. So there's a lot of people who are saying, that's a bad policy. This in part is designed to help alleviate that issue, so that we can keep healthy dams. If you let the dams get too high and then we get a sudden storm like we did in the 70s, it prevents those dams from breaking, prevents us from evacuating towns. Yeah, like they had to do in 2015.
Now,
16.
What exactly is the California water table?
The California water table?
Yeah.
The California water table is just that. So it's kind of the amount of water that exists like running underneath the topsoil of California.
Okay.
And I'm not a geologist or a hydrologist, and if I get it wrong, I'm sorry. It's the way it goes. I'm here to go find projects and then try to find the people who do know what they're talking about to do them well. I've only sat through numerous of these, and so if I don't get all the technical stuff right, I apologize. But yeah, it's essentially it's the amount of water that's running underneath California.
It'd be very interesting to have a geologist come on and actually give us like a whole breakdown of the water table and how all that really affects California. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
now let's talk about some local projects going on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now you say, how does Sun Mountain tie in with PG&E?
Okay, so we provide a number of services for PG&E, one of which is that PG&E came out with a process. Well, let me backtrack. PG&E used to, if you were a developer and you had 3 houses, if you had 20 houses, 100, 150 houses, you would put all the plans together. And for a lot of you folks who aren't developers, you might think, you just build stuff and you hook up to the grid and that's it. No, there's a lot of planning that has to go into this. There's a lot of oversight that has to happen. When you hook up 300 homes, brand new homes with brand new pipe to the existing gas system, there is an impact there that has to be calculated. There's risk that has to be mitigated. Not just that, but also electric grid. All of that has to be monitored and approved, and there are standards for that. A few years back, PG&E had an idea. They're like, we're spending way too much time and money validating these for the contractors. And the contractors really aren't, when I say contractors, I mean developing contractors. Well, the contractors that work for the developers. Let me say it like that. Those contractors are really relying on us to make sure everything gets done right. And it's costing us a lot of time, money, energy that our people would probably be better put towards other things. Okay. So they created a program called Applicant Install. Applicant Install is essentially where the contractor, the developer, comes to PG&E and says, we want to hook up to your system. And PG says, okay, give us the plans for how you're going to hook up to our system. And the contractor's like, well, I looked at the book, I looked at the plans, I looked at the schedules, I know this. I put it together. PG&E goes and proofs it. They say, okay, looks like you've done this correctly. We will accept it. We'll set you a clearance date. The clearance date is essentially the tie-in date. We'll set you a tie-in date, and we'll work together on that day. We'll have crews out there to make sure everything gets done. And it's really to minimize PG&E's impact in the planning aspects of development, because California's going through such a development surge. My company sits in a very interesting position in that one of the many things that we do for PG&E is we essentially we were hired to interface more directly with the contractors, to walk, because what PG&E was still finding is they weren't seeing the savings of time, energy, money on their part, because the contractors could always just kind of push it forward. And then the contractors were missing dates, and they were losing millions of dollars by missing dates. If you're in development, you understand that your contract team needs to be tied in because the developer needs to be selling those units.
Time is money.
People need to be in homes. They can't be in homes that don't have gas and electricity.
Yeah.
So our guys go out there on the behest of PG&E, and we work directly with contractors. We help them. If they don't know how to do the process, we help them through the process. We help them by codes and standards. We proof them for them so that anything that comes through one of my employees hits PG&E, has already had somebody with multiple years of experience in enforcing the codes and standards on natural gas pipeline and on electric. So it goes to PG&E. PG&E can look at it and say, yep, and then send out the teams on a pre-designed date, and our guys do the scheduling on that stuff too, or assist in the scheduling on that. And then it's the most efficient measure of PG&E to be able to allow developers to grow at the rate that they want. It's really, PG&E was starting to become a choke point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big piece that I do. I would say most of my company is employed in some aspect of that.
So because of that, you then see all the different projects that are happening.
We see
in
all
the
the
Bay
growth
Area.
in Northern California.
Northern California.
The PG&E service territory. So from Topac down in the desert to Redding is a different municipality, but north of Redding, yes.
Okay.
So the big growth areas in California or in the Bay Area. For those of you who are really interested, Hercules itself has a massive amount of growth.
Well, let's talk about Hercules right now because
I live here, so let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So years ago, Hercules they had plans to come in with, I believe Bart was going to come through.
Right.
You had a movie theater, I think, that was going to be put in, a couple of baseball fields, a lot of development. All that fell apart. But now there's a lot of planned development.
Yep.
So what's happening in Hercules?
So in Hercules, if you go into the city of Hercules' website, you will get some aspect of the information. I bought in Hercules in the fall of 2016. I moved out of Alameda, which I loved Alameda, but it was too expensive and too busy. And it is nicer out here, but Hercules is going to get too busy in the next probably 5 years.
Now, before we actually started recording, you provided a really good tip that if you're looking to buy in Hercules, make sure you check the most current website.
So on any website page, so when you go to the City of Hercules, you can look at the plans section, and it'll give you the plans, a lot of the intermodal transit station, the Bayfront development, or the Bayfront initiative, the bowl. There's the Muir Park. There's a lot of that stuff that's going on. It's all in there. So when you click on one of those things and you open up the page and you're like, oh, this looks great, make sure that you read at the bottom of the page where it says last updated on. Some of those pages were last updated on 2009. And the current plans for the city of Hercules may not be reflected accurately on that page. When I talked with someone at the city of Hercules that I ran into about a month after, someone very much in the know, right after I bought my house, and was talking about the area and how excited I was, he's like, "Oh yeah, right in front of your house, yeah. There's a multi-use facility, or housing / retail shops going right across the street." And I was like, "Oh, that's my view," and I realized I just lost my view. But on the website, it didn't talk about that. All right. So now there are good things about this. One is my housing prices are going to go up anyway, so I'm pretty happy with that. But it was something that I went into with a certain idea of what I was getting involved with. And when I did my fact checking with the city on what the city provided, that's what I got. Also, if you go on there now, you can see that there is a 2016 development plan on there. And that is the most current. But there might be some stuff missing. There's actually a planning meeting tonight for anyone who's watching. This probably won't be up. Well, if it is live. There's a planning meeting tonight at 7 p.m. at City Hall, too, that people can go and kind of ask whatever questions they really want to.
Okay. Now, there's 1,100 units going into Hercules right now, correct?
Planned, there's supposed to be 1,100 units going into Hercules. Most everyone's familiar if you drive down near the bay, the new, I think it's Mirror Park or something. There's 130-ish units going in there. They look really nice. You can see they're stacked and racked really close. They're right there next to Biorad.
Alfred Noble, Biorad, all those warehouses.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So 1,100 new units going into the Hercules area. Most of them are going to be happening. No, I won't say most of them. A lot of them are going to be happening in and around the Bayfront area. They're right near where, for those of you who don't know, where Layla's Above the Water is. There's not really going to be anything across the street from that. I think that's going to maintain its nice view. But you go towards behind Powder Keg, and what you see in Powder Keg with the shops on the bottom and the residentials on top, you're going to see those extend out, go up the hill. You're going to see those be racked and stacked behind up to the train tracks right there. Around the corner, you're going to see on that nice area where everybody likes to park and watch the sunset is in the train tracks right there. Right before you get to the brand new bridge and the Intermodal Transit Center on the other side, that's going to be shopping. They're not going to put houses there. That's going to be specifically shopping.
What's the timeline for all this?
That's a real thing, is what the timeline looks at. So they engaged a massive firm, and I'm blanking on it right now. That's why I do that silly look.
Probably 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I would expect it within 5 years. The biggest holdup, the number one holdup, I would say, is probably Intermodal Transit Center. I'm sure there's more to it, and I may not be 100%, and that's fine. But the Intermodal Transit Center and its negotiated use is it's a linchpin of the growth here in the area. So,
are they going to be extending BART out? Is that still one of the plans?
So now there's kind of an antagonistic issue with extending the BART out here. Intermodal Transit Center is really ideally situated it has a third rail, so there's no problem with creating an Amtrak stop at Intermodal.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons I bought my house. I'm a 5-minute leisurely walk to get to the Amtrak to take me to Jack London Square or out to Sacramento. The problem that the city was running into in general was that the person that there's some antagonism between BART and BART trying to demand the greatest level of ridership and Amtrak, which wants to demand the greatest level of ridership. So there was kind of some fighting that's gone on there. So do I think we're going to get BART? I would the anticipation I have is that we would get Amtrak first.
Okay.
In addition to that, people want to talk about the ferry. The ferry's been a concept here for 20 plus years, I suppose. I only know that from talking to people who tell me that they talked about this 20 years ago. The ferry is, after talking with the folks at the Contra Costa Transit Authority, the ferry here, we are probably third in line for a ferry. That really has to do with the fact that we don't have the ideal location for it. The dredging alone would be cost impactful. The current ferry system, let's just think about this, right? Anybody taking the ferry, you know how this works, right? You're on this massive, like, twin Cummins diesel vessel. It's got 250 seats. That thing goes whether it has one person on board. It goes whether it has 250 people on board. And it goes at the same times. It's extremely wasteful. It's not economical in any way. Right now, it's operating at a $4 million loss per year. So the people in the Bay Area subsidize that ferry system. One of the things that they're looking for, and you can see this when you look on Contra Costa Transit Authority's website too, is they're looking for alternatives to that large ferry system. One of the big ones that I know that they're promoting, if quietly, is that you have much smaller private providers of ferry services.
There's like 2 or 3 of them, right?
There are. One of them was supposed to go into Emeryville, Google's looking at like creating its own ferry service specifically to help support people getting to and from there.
Yeah, I remember when they passed Richmond to have a ferry terminal down at the marina.
Right.
There were some people saying, well, that's not a big deal because the private service already goes to Richmond Marina, and it's direct to San Francisco. And so some of the locals there were like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal because we just take this private service straight out to SF, and we already have it.
So some of the benefits of using a private service, this is not a public versus private argument. It's really about using the best tool for the job. In this particular case, is the best tool for the job a 250-person vessel that runs on a set schedule, whatever, that runs at a $4 million per year loss. And that's not $4 million per vessel. It's $4 million system-wide. So it's Alameda, Larkspur, East Bay, Vallejo, New Mare Island, which we can talk about in a second too, as we talk about growth. The whole system runs at $4 million in loss, right? So you can get a private company in there. It doesn't have to leave at the same time. It can be a smaller vessel. It can be with green engines. It's the private vessel is going to look, the private vessel supplier and provider is going to look for less expensive ways to perform functionally the same function and the best customer service possible, but doing it in the best way. Private companies can be dynamic. If they realize, you know what, at 10:30 a.m. I get 2 riders on my 40-person vessel.
You cut the service out.
You cut the service. You push service. Hey, we need a couple more vessels to handle our 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and then the home commute. I need 3 vessels operating out of the port of at the Hercules dock during those time periods, and they can do that. And if ridership opens or rises or falls, they can modify that accordingly. Right now, you can't. You just got big 250-person vessels, multi-million-dollar, these big, huge, expensive vessels. It just doesn't work that well. So really, one of the things that you can do here is if you're you can start trying to motivate City of Hercules, City of Pinole, the regional transit authority, and hey, this is what we want. We want these small vessels that run just as fast, if not faster, that are running on different times, that can be, I don't know if they're going to be more expensive or less expensive. When you create the right kind of demand, you can drive prices down.
So what are the 2 cities before Hercules that would get a ferry terminal?
The 2 cities before Hercules are going to get a ferry terminal.
One of them has to be Mare Island, right?
One of them is Mare Island, yes. One of them is Vallejo, which already has one. It's actually Martinez and Richmond.
Okay.
So I think when I last spoke with them, which was only a couple months ago, I think Mare Island was already on the books. And
I believe the delay with Richmond is they're just waiting for the boats to be built. I believe they already broke ground, but they were just really waiting for the boats to be built. That was the biggest delay because it was supposed to open at the end of 2016, I believe.
Yeah, that's quite a delay considering where we're at.
Yeah.
So there might be, I don't know about Richmond, but if you got that kind of delay, there's a funding issue. General.
So
boats are boats to a certain degree.
Yeah. So now there's Mare Island, which is going to be very interesting because right across that little canal there is you have Vallejo already has a ferry terminal.
Right. So for those of you guys who don't know, you guys can look in on this. There is the Mare Island Development Initiative. It's somewhere around 150, 180 acres of Mare Island, essentially half of Mare Island. I was stationed there for a year, actually, in the Army. I worked on boats at the dock. They're going to take that dock, and essentially they're privatizing that dock for the most part. They're going to revamp everything that's out there. It's really great because the military in the 40s just poisoned everything it touched. And the ecological impact of anything aligned with the Base Realignment and Closure Act. I come from a Base Realignment Closure 1 town, Atwater, which had Castle Air Force Base, which was closed. There's a ton of toxic material that the government employed and built with at that time period, and they just didn't think or care about the ecological impacts. So Mare Island is one of those places. It's a massive. It's had the Navy just poisoning that place for a really long time. So there's gonna be a lot of remediation that has to go on. For those of you in that business, I just spoke to some people last week about this. There's a lot of that remediation work that's going to have to go on. You've got multi-unit houses, retail going in. Maybe everyone only knows Mare Island for the golf course and the brewery.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But you've got now it's going to be more people out there living. I think they want it to be the Alameda of North Bay. It's linked to a lot of revitalization projects that the city of Vallejo really wants to push. The city of Vallejo is probably one of the largest has the greatest potential in the area for economic impact.
Well, it's a great location, too. I mean, if you think about it. I mean, just cross the Carquinez, you're now in the East Bay, headed towards San Francisco. You can jump 37 to, Sonoma County,
right.
Easily get to Marin, and then you go up to Napa.
Right. And so you get, it's the intersection for a lot of that Sacramento traffic comes through there.
Yep.
It's a great intersection location, but it was really, speaking of the Base Realignment Closure Act of the 80s and 90s, Vallejo was hit really hard. And it's never recovered. I think it's one of the cities that voted for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. I wanted to say that right. I didn't want to besmirch Vallejo's name, but
yeah, I think they're out of the bankruptcy now. I think they came out a few years ago.
Oh, good. So that's a city that in 25 years could be a great like mid-level city with good economic impacts for the area.
Yeah, it's definitely gaining popularity. I mean, I see it in some of the rentals I manage out there. Prices are going up really high.
Benicia is a lot. Those prices are jumping.
Yeah.
That's a great town. I just was there for Easter Sunday. I just took my son down to the park down there.
Yeah, Main Street's great, right? Just go down Main Street, and then you've got
Military West is that one.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just some really cool properties there. It's a really pretty, like, adorable area. Really nice area. And you still, if you worked in East or Northeast Bay, I would say that's a good place to go. Hercules is probably still one of the best places for your cost. To be in a great place, quiet place, great schools, quick access to things.
Yep.
Hercules is still great. The 80s the 80s a nightmare, but I mean, you just got to get up earlier.
Yeah, it's also not bad if you maybe work in Concord, Walnut Creek.
That's what I do. Yeah. So it takes me 30 minutes to get to work, and I work on the south side of Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
Our offices are on North Broadway.
And I think buying in Hercules compared to Walnut Creek, you're going to easily save 30 to 50% on price.
So my boss went to go find a house kind of similar to mine in the Walnut Creek area, and he says, I'm not getting anything out here for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
That's what I have here, and I did not pay $1 million. So that's 40%.
Yeah. And what's your commute? 25 minutes?
25 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's 25 minutes.
Yeah. So let's talk about closer to Oakland. What's happening in Oakland, Berkeley, Emeryville? Any big projects out there?
I'll talk about Alameda. So Alameda has another former. We're a veteran-owned company, right? We're a veteran-owned operated company. We try to keep our veteran status. But almost 50% of our employees are veterans. Like we like to employ veterans. Veterans are wonderful employees. They are really fast on learning new projects and new jobs. It's just part and parcel with where we came from. I say that because a lot of the places that I focus on are these former military bases. Alameda has a massive section of Alameda. For those of you who have ever been out to Spirits Alley or go out to that, what is it? It's the Antiques Fair out there at the first or last Sunday of the month. I can't remember which one.
Mm-hmm.
That whole area is rife for redevelopment, and it's finally being pushed through. So there are about 850 new units going in Alameda alone. Those are going to be mixed use, kind of similar to Aventine here. But you have 250 of those units are being held for Section 8. So the population isn't necessarily the population that currently on the former base that's living there is probably, I think, Section 8.
Yeah, I think a certain percentage has to go toward low-income housing, right?
That's right. And so they've decided 250 is their number out of 850. It is going to create a massive amount of traffic problems in that area. But there are 2 ferry services currently terminating at Alameda. And
now there's only those 2 bridges, right? Well, you have a tunnel and you have a bridge going into.
You have a tunnel and you have 3 bridges.
Okay.
Park Street. There's an off ramp at Park Street that was under construction for about 2 years. That's finally finished up, so it's still a mess, but you can get through it. So yeah, you have the 3 bridges and the tunnel. That is going to become a major problem with that many additional families. I figure 2 cars per. You've got another 1,600 cars coming on and off the island every day. The ferries are there, and if you work downtown, those are absolutely fantastic. 30 minutes. My brother, he still lives. No, he just moved. I forgot. He used to live down there, and he worked downtown at PG&E at the Beale Street location. He would just take that in every day. That's a really good use of the public transportation system there. It's expensive, it's ferry prices, but it's a lot more economical when you look at like how much of your life you're saving by getting stuck in traffic. But it's become a major, major issue there. In addition to Mare Island, and actually the plan they have for a lot of the water system there, and water system, I really mean the little bay that the Navy used to operate out of. They're going to build islands, and it's going to be a park with bridges to each of the little islands, and you can just walk on and off. So that'll be a lot of fun if it comes out the way that it's designed currently.
Yeah.
In addition to that, Treasure Island, for those of you driving over the Bay Bridge, you may notice that there's if you guys just drive past at high speeds, pissed off, as angry as possible that you're not in San Francisco already or home already. If you look over, you'll see Treasure Island, which I think if you've ever been down there, is just one of the coolest, most beautiful places that you can be in the Bay Area. And they're demoing a major portion of that. A lot of that island as part of the base that got closed down. All of the enlisted housing and the enlisted barracks are being demolished. They're putting down more topsoil to float the island again because it was kind of sinking. So they're shoring back up the island. There are 250 new units going on on Treasure Island. Treasure Island gives you amazing access to this to the city. Obviously, you don't pay bridge toll because you're already past the bridge toll. They only have the one supermarket, but they do have a commuter bus that goes in and out of that location. And as you see 250 brand new homes with San Francisco Bay prices, you're going to see some things happen. You're going to see that grocery store is going to expand. You're going to see services.
Would they also fix the on and off ramps?
Fix it.
Because right now those on and off ramps,
goes all the way up and around as you come from Oakland side.
Well, there's that one, but also to get onto the freeway, I mean, it's literally 1 or 2 car lengths, and then you're already merging right into it.
It is going to create a lot more. Are you talking about from San Francisco direction or Oakland direction?
Going into San Francisco direction.
Yeah, so that direction, they're going to have to look at revamping that, but that's bridge impactful. That's major dollar money. I don't expect that to happen. I think that's going to maintain its current course, and they'll do a traffic modeling plan to determine what the actual impact is once they start revamping that. And maybe they've already planned it. If I was doing it, I would have planned it, but I'm not perfect. But I like to look forward a few years.
Now, what about here in the East Bay? Is there anything in Emeryville, Hayward?
I'm less knowledgeable about East Bay until you get to Livermore, until you really take a look at that area. So Livermore, which is like the very edges of the bay.
Livermore has a lot of wineries out there.
There's a ton of wineries, right? And it's actually, that is the start of cowboy country, and for a lot of Bay Area people, that's about as much as they really know about it. The housing prices in that area have been skyrocketing. With the extension of the BART into the area, it's really made affordable housing. A lot of that affordable housing is starting to disappear very quickly. There's hugely expensive neighborhoods out there. There is, if everyone knows the La Miranda corridor over here, there's a kind of similar corridor that's on the 680 south of the 580 interchange up on the hillside that is just, I've driven back there, and there's money back there. That's, gated communities. There's also some really weird kind of backcountry stuff, too. There was a point I drove as far as I could up into one road, and I thought I was in West Virginia.
Really?
It was gnarly. Yeah, it was gnarly.
And that was in Livermore?
I don't mean anything against West Virginia. I got family there, but the housing levels changed so abruptly. It was very interesting. So Yeah, but for Oakland, I can't keep an eye on Oakland. Emeryville, I can't keep an eye on. Brooklyn Basin looks like it's moving along. I still think the Brooklyn Basin it's like the bridge to nowhere of urban development. I will say this about Oakland, though. So Oakland, for those of you who don't know, recently created a Department of Transportation, which is a pretty big deal. What it means is the city's decided.
I'm surprised they didn't have one before.
Well, I think if you looked and saw how many cities don't have departments of transportation that you thought you would be surprised. So Department of Transportation is really just a focus. It's when you have decided to create a director level position in a municipal government to focus on one particular aspect, that is something that the city considers to be extremely important. So for Oakland's Department of Transportation, they just hired a new guy. He comes from New York City, where he's part of DOT out there. Can't remember his name. I met him a few months back. I can't remember his name, though. He has an entire vision and plan for making the transportation or addressing transportation issues in Oakland that help address a lot of the disenfranchised, disincentivized, lower income populations that exist, primarily along waterfront areas in the Oakland area, in Oakland in general, which is actually a really large city.
Yeah.
But you'll find that the economically depressed areas are primarily along the waterfront. So, and a lot of those folks, have difficulty getting to and from their work. You've seen different types of bicycle services going in. There's going to be a promotion of that. They're looking at doing projects like, what do they call it? It's like street dieting.
Street dieting?
It's this concept. So what you do is between certain hours, you allow people to park on 4-lane streets, essentially turn them into 2-lane streets.
Okay.
And then at other hours, during rush hours, you prevent parking there. So conceptually, it allows the flow of more traffic during certain times. Obviously, this only works if everyone participates and no one parks when they're not supposed to park. I would just say there's an issue with it there. But they've got additional bus services that they're looking at supporting. There's actually autonomous vehicle buses being tested right now up in Contra Costa County, at the former
the base in Concord, right?
Yeah, they're very proud of that. They've got some autonomous vehicle work going on up there. That's going to be.
Well, I really think that's going to be a big game changer when you have these autonomous vehicles that start really taking over, and they're able to pick up people, and even better when they can communicate with other vehicles and can decide the better routes based on the current traffic.
Right. It's one of those things that's like when we first started using cell phones, right? Our first started using telephones. There were only 2 telephones.
Yeah.
Right. So there's network effects. The more people that use the system, the better the system becomes. It works that way with autonomous vehicles too. So I actually met with the directors of Contra Costa Transit Authority, Randy Awada, right after the Las Vegas autonomous bus incident happened. So the very first day, Las Vegas, out of the blue, the mayor says, "Hey, we've got an autonomous bus, and we're going to start running this thing." So he runs it. Within, I think, 2 to 3 hours, it had been hit. And
did another vehicle hit the bus, or the bus hit
another vehicle? A semi truck backed out onto Las Vegas Boulevard and into it. And reports from the people inside were that, and then I was in Las Vegas not soon after and got to hear from one of these people. They just had to sit there frozen, locked in this car as they all watched this vehicle coming back into them, knowing they were going to get hit. That was kind of scary. So there's work to be done. And then the Google autonomous vehicle just hit and killed a lady recently too. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that space to make it safe. But it's driving. It's inherently riskful activity. Not to forgive anybody who's culpable, but
it'll reduce a lot of deaths on the road and injuries too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
From like current levels.
So I don't think I've ever driven south on the 80 without running into some kind of accident. primarily because people were on their phones
Yeah.
at high speeds early in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Or doing their makeup.
right.
Yeah, I've
Or
seen
whatever inexplicable reason creates the traffic jam in Berkeley. No idea what creates that, but there's just always that traffic jam in Berkeley.
That. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Maybe it's the beautiful views,
It's all right.
especially if it's a clear day. And from Berkeley right there, you can see the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I always tend to look over.
I like to get to the bridge, and then you see a lot more. Especially the new bridge is really nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But no, I don't know what it is. It's just always a problem there. But yeah, I think those are your big growth areas here in the East Bay. I'm sure I missed some. I try to keep tabs on what I keep tabs on, but I have a certain focus.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really exciting, all this development happening here in the Bay Area. I mean, we all know we need it, you know, just a housing shortage. And that's something I keep talking about on my podcast all the time, is just the number of units that we need just to kind of, you know, help out the situation.
Just
And
hit parity,
a lot
absolutely.
of people, a lot of people ask me all the time, like, why are prices so high? Whether you're looking to buy a house or whether to rent.
Right.
And it's just, we have a lot of people. The demand is high. Supply is restricted, very low.
Right.
Supply and demand.
We also have a major impact, especially in the city, of you have the crash did a lot of interesting things, right? The crash brought Google back into San Francisco to its roots, where it moved out. You know, it was coming back. Having these large, deep-pocketed institutions, not only to bring their permanent employees, but their temporary employees. So then people started buying the homes there, and then we get into the big Airbnb fiascos that are happening in the Bay Area. So people are buying these homes just to do that. It's a very similar thing that happened to Venice in Italy. So in Venice in Italy, there's only about 10,000 people who actually live in that city. Everything else is rentable. And people go in there, they speculatively rent it, and it's all handled through management companies and Airbnb.
Really?
But very few people have walked through the areas where they actually live, and you can tell immediately when you are walking through Venice and you find, okay, this is a neighborhood.
Wow.
And then you walk everywhere else, and you're like, this is not a neighborhood. So you're seeing a similar effect is happening in San Francisco, where people aren't being pushed out for other people who make more money necessarily. They're being pushed out
For
people
Airbnb.
for kind of Airbnb, and you know, unfortunately, they're kind of synonymous with that movement, so they get the bad rep for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know San Francisco's put in a lot of recent laws for Airbnb, short-term rentals, and I know they're battling a lot with property owners that don't want to comply. And they are tracking down, or they're tracking Airbnb and seeing which new ones pop up, cross-referencing with licenses, everything, and they're shutting them down.
That's right. Did you see that there's a news article that this year was the first year, and I don't remember, it was like forever, that the population in the Bay Area is dropping?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, look that up. It's Google. It says that the population for the first time, I forget, maybe it's ever, maybe it's in decades, that the population is dropping. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think a lot of people, a lot of companies, startups in particular, they want to be here for that locality and the being able to meet other people similarly minded and being this kind of great area that has like all these smart people that are coming with these big dreams. You can do the same thing in Portland. You can do the same thing in Austin.
Well, there's a lot of different metropolitan areas that are really trying to focus on recruiting these tech companies and saying, hey, we'll provide you these discounts and benefits. We've got the same number of potential workers.
Right.
We can help you grow your company over here.
Do you know Reno's home prices have been going up 10% per year?
No, I didn't.
Gigafactory, they're in talks.
Oh, the
Amazon.
Tesla factory? Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting. That's when if they build the city that they're claiming they're going to build associated with it, and I don't put it past Elon Musk, but I mean he tries to do what he says he's going to do. It'll be a good deal then. Right now, it's just,
and I guess Tesla's one of the potential. Well, they're one of the parties interested in the Oakland Coliseum area right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's buying up everything. But I think he's going to take us to Mars, so I think he gets a pass on.
Right, he's going to buy us a planet.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
No, he'll just make a planet.
Like he'll claim it, and then it'll be his, and The UN will have to come in on laws and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got places like Reno. The the home values it's very near to here.
Mm-hmm.
Investment purposes, it's very good.
And you can take Amtrak up there too.
You can take Amtrak out there. So it's $43 from Martinez to Reno.
One way or round trip?
One way. So per person, right? But you get the Wi-Fi. The thing that happens, though, is that track is not owned by Amtrak. That track is owned by maybe BNSF, but it's owned by one of the actual freight carriers. So when you are going up the mountain, if the freight carrier needs to get by, they'll push the Amtrak not off the track. They'll put it onto the third rail, and it'll stop. And then the freight carrier will come by. And when that freight carrier's done and by, and it may be 2 miles long, then Amtrak will go. So it should take about 4 hours. You have to change trains in Sacramento, but it may take longer. And you just have to just plan accordingly.
Yeah.
But it's great. You go right back to Martinez. If we get the third rail here, you can do the same thing. I could walk out my door with my wife and kid. We could grab her with our bags, walk 5 minutes, jump on the Amtrak, ride all the way up to my mom's place. She just retired, moved up to Reno, and go visit her for $43.
Now, I've always been curious taking the train up there during the snow.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Looks like
way better than driving.
I've seen it. Like, they'll close the track, but you'll have notification of that beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you got to be smart. You got to look at the weather. You got to plan. I just drove up there during that big storm, and I got stuck up there because they got 5 feet that weekend.
Yeah.
But you got to do the same planning. You're responsible for your trip.
Okay. So we're going to finish this up here, but I do want to ask you one final question.
Mm-hmm.
What's catching your attention right now? It could be a beer, a book, a movie, music, anything. What's catching your attention?
Something I think is really interesting right now, and I'm going to stick with the industry, which may not be that interesting to anybody, is the use of LiDAR in civil infrastructure projects. So for those who aren't familiar, LiDAR is essentially radar. Everyone kind of understands how radar works, right? You pings off sound and then records the variants that come back, and that gives radar an idea of physically what's out there. The same really works with light. They do this similar process with light, and it's called LiDAR. LiDAR is amazing because you can get extremely accurate readings off of it. So we're talking like 3 millimeters, so it's like that.
And this is the same technology they use to discover that ancient city in Guatemala, right?
That's correct. Yes. So they use PG&E's been using this system for a while now to go for almost similar purposes, not to go find ancient civilizations that are here, but they have hundreds of thousands of transmission lines and distribution lines on the electric lines. Electrical distribution and transmission lines, and there are trees everywhere, right? And these trees will grow into the power lines, and if they're not monitored and cut in a timely manner, they can create shortages, outages, fires, which can be amazingly devastating and costly. So there's currently a massive force at PG&E. It's something like 250 people are full-time employed at PG&E. They do nothing but drive around the hundreds of thousands of miles of lines, evaluating by eye where the plants are growing and where they're going to be growing over the next several months, and then assigning work orders to have these contract firms like Asplund and Davy Tree, and get them to go out and cut them down. I used to work for Asplund back in it was one of my first jobs when I got out of the Army the first time in 2001. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into it. One of the things you do now is you can place LiDAR onto a plane, onto any type of airframe, fly it over your lines. It can take huge data readings, and it's so accurate it can determine the health of the limbs as they creep over your lines.
The health,
the health.
Wow.
Yeah, so because it can take it's responsive to like heat and things like that. So, okay, this is an unhealthy limb. And then they take that data, it downloads the system into various systems. There's interesting companies that are in this space, one of which is Enview, which is run by San Gunawarna and KP, and They're awesome people. They're looking at really managing this massive amount of data in very interesting and cool ways. So, but yeah, they can take that back, and then they can just automate, essentially assigning out contract crews to go out there and cut down this tree limb, which may start a fire, which may cost billions of dollars. So that's one idea, one aspect. Other ideas and aspects are that it can fly over a location. In California, we have earthquakes. If no one knows that, I'm just going to tell you, we have earthquakes. So when earthquakes happen, it shifts this ground, right? We all understand how it works. With 3 millimeter, if you've flown over that area once and you get a baseline reading of it, and you fly over it after an earthquake, you can go over the same technology. You can determine within 3 millimeters if that ground, that soil has shifted. There's a lot of impacts there. We can then be notified if there's potential landslide risks, like in Santa Barbara Hills, right, or in LA. Especially after massive fires and the soil erosion associated with that, you can make those determinations. That's cool on like a big macro scale, right?
Yeah.
But on a micro scale, what's really cool about this is you can put LiDAR onto drones. It's actually how I came out to the Bay Area this most recent time. Is I got hired by a Finnish company to open up a company, a LiDAR drone company out here in the Bay Area, and things didn't quite work out, which is really unfortunate. They're great people, and I ended up working for PG&E instead. So one of the cool things about that is you can get these. There are companies now that are leasing these themselves. They'll train you how to do it. If you're a construction firm or a project management firm like myself, you can go and, we drove out to the site today. Whoop, pop it up, fly my circle around, record all the data, go back to the place, go back to my office. I can take a look at and I can send updates on the construction activities on any. I can see how many feet they've dug over X period of time, right? Because I'm taking intermittent readings. So I can actually monitor how good my construction crews are doing. If they claim they're going to be able to move 50,000 cubic feet every week and they're only doing 25, I will know that.
Wow.
And then I can bring them in and I can renegotiate our contracts. So there's little things you can do like that that are really cool.
More information.
That's right. That's right. And as soon as the FAA, a lot of this stuff is really being held up in the FAA. And as soon as the FAA authorizes beyond line of sight drone activity, you're going to see this stuff everywhere, doing all kinds of things. You're going to see the entire United States mapped and constantly being evaluated for blah. If you can think of it, if you can think about being able to determine millimeter-like differences in land, vegetation, everything like that, it's amazing. The guys at Enview found a house in Oakland that was not registered by the city of Oakland. Like I wasn't paying taxes.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey.
I guess that property owner wasn't too happy.
He wasn't happy with them. But you know what? He's a cheater. That happens. But just ideas, right? And I mean, shoot, coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas. It just lets the mind kind of like extrapolate all these different concepts that you can work with.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited for. That's one of the cool things I think I'm excited for right now.
Sweet. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.